Welcome to Song of the Week. This week we've chosen By George, which is a jazz piece. And after the performance, I'll share with you some fun facts that nobody knows about this song. All right, it is a fun piece. Okay, fun fact about that song. I got into composition in high school. It was probably my junior year, and my teacher asked me if I wanted to participate in an MTNA competition on composition. So I wrote a song, submitted it, and I won first place in the state of Colorado. I thought that was kind of cool. Maybe I'd do some more songs. So when I went into college, I lost all my compositions that I wrote before that point, but this is the oldest living composition that I have, called By George. Did it when I was, I think, a freshman or a sophomore in high school or in college. I got into jazz a little bit because I had a jazz teacher, and I went in, she showed me some chord progressions, and we were in my very first jazz concert, and she was standing up at the piano. So she was just standing here playing these chords. And I'm coming from this classical world, listening to this jazz stuff, and it's very strange for me. Plus, I've never seen anybody stand up at a concert. And she also had like a bottle of juice sitting inside this $150,000 Steinway, and I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, you can't do that, what's wrong with you? So she's just sitting there jazzing out, and then right in the middle of the concert, she starts telling me about her week. I'm like, there's an audience sitting out there, and they're all listening to this. If in my classical mind, none of this made sense. It was like surreal to me. And so she's just playing this. But that was my first taste of jazz, and then I played in a jazz band at games and stuff. So I started experimenting with some different jazz sounds, and one of them you'll see in this song. Let's go ahead and come over here, and I'll show you. We'll break this song down. If you come over to the practice mode and go to the chop slicing, you'll see that there's an intro. Let me walk you through this intro. It looks really hard. If you back up and just watch my hands, I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you an easy way to play it. Looks really tricky. But if you take this first chord and just put your hand in this position, you've got the D, D, F sharp, A, D, C and D, with your middle finger not playing anything. And I just don't play the inside chord. This is a D major 7 chord. Remember, this is the D chord, this is a D minor. D major would be the major third here, and then we add a 7th. And that 7th, there's so many 7th chords in jazz. So we've got this chord here, and then I come up to the top with my hand coming over. You'll have to back up. Play the D, and then I go right back to my position. And then I'm back Now this chord's a little weird, but if you look at it, it's actually the same chord as this one. I just play the A, C, D, and then the F sharp I play on the top. So they're the same notes as this one. Hopefully that makes it easy. D7 to D7, and then the walk down. And then we start the next part. Now this part's super easy. This would be the second part here, the A section. And I'll hit the prepare and just show you. It repeats this 3 times. And then it finishes with a walk down. And it starts over. Now this, you get an interesting sound from this G minor. Normally you'd have that followed with a C minor. But instead you go outside of the key from the G minor chord, and we'll play the 4 as a major chord. Sounds cool. And that's how you get that sound. G minor to C. Then the fun begins. Now we get into some jazzy stuff, and if I come over here, this will be the B section. In the B section, you're going to see these chords that are stacked up on top of each other. Let me just zoom in a bit. So you have this, instead of a snowman, it's like a four-headed snowman, or 2 heads on that. And you look down on the keys over here. There's your G minor chord, but we add the 7th. And that is another 7 chord. And then we do another 7 chord. Another 7 chord. Another 7 chord. Okay, so the way these chord progressions work, it's actually circle of fifths backwards. If you've seen circle of fifths, that's, I'll explain it real quick. The C has 0 sharp, 0 flats. You go to the next key that's up 5 notes. And you start doing the key of G, which has 1 sharp. Go up 5 notes, and you have a D. D has 2 sharps. Then A has 3 sharps. B has, or E has 4. B has 5. And so forth. And you go all the way around until you get back to 1 sharp, or no sharps. And that's back to the C. So that's going forward through the circle of fifths. If you actually go backwards, where you go down 5 notes, then you're to F. So you go from the C chord to the F chord. From the F chord to the B flat chord, to the E chord, and you get some really cool jazz progressions. So what we've started with on this one is the the G chord, going to the C chord. But instead of jumping down to this inversion, we just stay in the same position. We already have 2 notes that are the same, and you just drop these 2 notes down. And then you go to the next chord, which is F. So we've got, that's an F minor 7, and then a B major 7. So G minor 7 to C major 7, F minor 7 to B flat major 7. Instead of going with a minor chord, we switch it up. And let me just show you in this next section. Now we have a major chord, a major 7, going to a major 7. The sound sounds like a little like this. Oops, let me get the prepare mode on there. Now listen really carefully to those jazz progressions. The next section of the song is actually going to be your favorite because it's so easy if you know the trick. So we go over to here, and it's just this little... And if you're just watching that, it looks pretty cool. Let me show you why it's so easy. You start off with this D chord, and this is just a D major 7. Same chord we've been doing before. We just walk down. And then you move your hand up 1 octave and do the same thing here. Then you move your hand up 1 octave and do the same thing. Finish on D and D. Let's do that a little slow motion. One trick when you're changing hand positions, focus on one hand and then the other. So I'm going to do this, like I can't move both hands up and be able to see them. But if I start with my left hand, it's already moving into the new position. And while it's playing, I'm moving this hand into this position. So move the left hand, then the right. We'll go fast. And then just back to what you know. And then the last part is the coda. Let's go ahead and take a look at the coda. The coda goes right here. Looks a lot like the very beginning. Instead of going to the D chord, we end on the G chord. And that's it. This is a blues scale. We'll talk more about blues scales and improvising on blues in the next lesson. We're out of time this week. So next week, hopefully we'll be able to get to some more blues scales and some fun things that I can show you. Until then, we'll see you later. Have fun.